Hello there, welcome into an action-packed show on ESPN Plus. I'm Adrian Healy in the company of Alejandro Moreno, Steve Nicol, Craig Burley, Don Hutchinson and Gab Marcotti will be with us. A little later on, we'll show you a young Liverpool in action, preview Juventus tomorrow, and what's coming to Mark with 14 shots on goal raining in the rain in Dortmund. It leaves the Bundesliga table looking like this. Unchanged. RB Leipzig still top. They're now 3 points. Dortmund up to within a point of Borussia Mönchengladbach. Let's bring Don Hutchinson in first. Don, what did you make of this? What a game.
Absolutely crazy game. I mean, it was a brilliant game to watch. Very entertaining, but typical Borussia Dortmund, really. When you watch them, they constantly, every single season, implode. It's what they do. It's in their DNA. They don't keep clean sheets. Brilliant game to watch. At one point in the game, when they're leading 2-0, the game was just so in their grasp that it was total control for them. And then Roman Bürki, who we've seen in the Champions League many a year, making a massive mistake. And Timo Werner gets his goals. For Leipzig's point of view, in Nagelsmann, I mean, they're a side that came into this game with 6 wins on the spin. And now it's unbeaten in 7. But they score more than 3 goals in every single game. It's incredible when you're watching this Leipzig team play, because they're another side that just don't do clean sheets. They're a carbon copy, really, of Borussia Dortmund. Great going forward, but so bad at the back.
Yeah, they're the third highest scorers in all the major European leagues.
I know we discussed the Champions League draw, which included Dortmund against PSG, and that's going to be a heck of a game now if you're PSG. Not that it'll be news to you that Dortmund struggle at the back, but to see them make so many mistakes and to see them be so open in such a big game, ultimately they're still in the title race, was unbelievable. But, you know, great atmosphere in Germany, as you'd expect. The conditions made it an entertaining game, made it a little bit more difficult, particularly for goalkeepers. Timo Werner clearly is the difference between potentially Leipzig hanging on to that top spot and not. But defensively, I think it's why Bayern Munich will look and say, well, I tell you what, we just need to hang in there and eventually we'll catch these pair.
It almost feels like 2 points dropped rather than a point game, maybe for both teams.
Listen, Borussia Dortmund, it was because of them there was 6 goals in the game.
Yeah.
It was nothing to do with what Leipzig were doing. I mean, you know, for the neutral, you say this game was enjoyable. I can assure you, I didn't enjoy watching this. I was embarrassed with some of it. Well, it is, but some of the defending is just... I've said it for so long, it's disappearing. But if you ever wanted to see an example of 2 teams who have no idea, by the way, this is not just individual mistakes. We're talking about being out of position as well. So you've got 2 teams who have no idea how to defend, but of course, they can go forward and score goals. And that's why you're going to see so many crazy games, particularly in the Champions League coming up.
So the defender didn't enjoy it. Did the striker enjoy it?
I enjoyed it. It's open. It's entertaining. However, you cannot get past the fact that it's so frustrating to watch the inability to defend in space, in tight areas, over distance, how disconnected the teams are, how open the game became. You want to see the back and forth, and you want to see the goals, but you also want to see quality. And what you don't see from either Leipzig or Dortmund is defensively, there is no quality. And the personnel is what they have available. There is nothing else. There's not, well, we have injuries and our best defenders are coming back. No. It's Klosterman and Upamecano playing in the back for Leipzig. And then you look at the options for Borussia Dortmund, you think Mats Hummels and Akanji and Zagadou, and sometimes they drop Julian Weigl into that position. None of those guys can truly defend. And so, you don't defend from the back. You don't defend from the midfield. Eventually, this is just about optional defending, and that's why we get to 3-3. There are mistakes everywhere happening out on the field. It's enjoyable to watch in the sense that there's 6 goals in the game, but, man, it is tough to watch as a former professional.
Even at 3-3, Julian Weigl played this square ball at the end, and Timo Werner almost got in. And I know he's part of the problem, but it cut to Lucien Favre on the bench, and he looked as if somebody was going to have to call the Red Cross. I mean, he was just sat back going, I can't take any more of this.
Gab Marcotti is with us. Gab, what was your main takeaway?
I'm not so sure about lumping these 2 teams together in that way with the bad defending. I mean, I think neither defended very well, though I think Dortmund were really awful. But I think with Dortmund, it has to do with the fact that this is a team that's not right in the head. They're frazzled right now, and it's been pretty evident even during this more recent recovery. With Leipzig, I think a lot of it just has to do with the way they play. They will take chances. They will leave one-on-one situations at the back, and most of the time, people like Upamecano deal with them. Sometimes when you're up against really, really good forwards, they're not going to be able to. But I think the risk-taking with them is more by design. I think with Dortmund, this is not the way Favre wants to play. It's simply that he can't change it, and he hasn't been able to change it all season long.
Well, every Leipzig game will now be monitored very closely by Spurs fans. One day, those two teams paired in the Champions League round of 16. We showed you odds yesterday. They seem to have changed slightly since then, but still hardly able to separate the two teams in terms of favourites. Don, how do you rate this game?
See which way it lands.
Yeah, it's about, the bookies are pretty much seeing it the same way.
Yeah, this is going to be an open couple of games. It's one of them where it could be like a Tottenham Ajax scenario where it's going to be a cracking game for the neutral to watch. It's going to be hard, I would imagine, at times if you're a Spurs fan or a Leipzig fan watching the games unfold, watching the minutes unfold, because it is truly one of them games where there's some brilliant ties and there's some predictable ties in the last 16. But I think this one is one of them where you've literally, as a professional and you're a viewer, and you're a pundit watching this game, you literally cannot call this.
Well, in terms of the Bundesliga title race odds, the result tonight hasn't really changed. I think Bayern Munich are still favourites, 2-1 on RB. Just going by what the odds makers saying. So
you don't see that? You don't think that?
Because Bayern Munich were once champions of Europe. Bayern Munich this season have been awful. They can't keep a clean sheet. And if you take Lewandowski out of that team, it completely changes it. Are they favourites? Yes, I think they're favourites.
But he's still in the team. but he's still in the team. Lewandowski's still in the team, and will be in the team.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. You take
Well, you can't take him. He's in the team.
He's going to make the difference. He's going to make the difference in the team.
I know. Well, that's what I'm saying.
But how can it be such disparity when you see the odds?
Because Lewandowski.
If Chelsea win this game, you're telling me this is a shock. You can't say it's a shock if Chelsea beat Bayern. No, but don't think they will.
There are degrees.
Don't tell me you're all going to go, oh, can you believe Chelsea beat Bayern?
I have to say, I would be surprised over two legs at the moment, because Chelsea have been struggling a little bit of late. Frank Lampard hasn't been particularly happy with the performances. And I know Bayern haven't been great, but they're a huge threat going forward, a much bigger threat than Chelsea going forward. And they've got the best, most informed striker in world football in Lewandowski. So at this moment in time, if it was a one-game thing, I could take it. But I think over 2 games, I'll be surprised at the moment if Chelsea pull that off.
Don, how surprised would you be if Chelsea pull it off?
I would, but I like Stevie's attitude where he just completely taken Lewandowski out of the equation. I quite sort of admire Stevie's attitude there, just dismissing one of the best strikers in world football.
Well, there you go. Man-to-man job, Don.
You should
know about that.
What's that?
I said man-to-man job on him. No. There you go. You should know about that.
Man-to-man job. I can't imagine there's a Chelsea player that could do it. No, I think Craig's right. I think over 2 legs, you'd make Bayern favourites. I mean, yes, you can look at the informed players for Chelsea, and there's some terrific young players, but this is another level. I thought Chelsea, to be fair to them, they put a marker down when they went away to Ajax and won. That was a real statement win for that young group of players. But going into the Allianz Arena, you know, against Coutinho, Perisic, Thomas Muller, Lewandowski, Joshua Kimmich, you know, Thiago, the names just, you know, roll off the tongue because they are so talented. Yes, Bayern on any given day can collapse, as we've seen in the Bundesliga this season, but over 2 legs against Chelsea, I'll make them just favourites.
Well, lots more reaction to the Champions League draw on the Gab and Jules, or should I say Gab and Robbo podcast. Stuart Robson filling in for Julien Laurent. That's available on the Apple Podcasts. Codger beats Young Reds, Stevie, which pretty much sums it up.
Well, exactly. You can't. Liverpool can't complain. I mean, seriously, did anybody think they were going to send another 23 side and get anything from this game? I mean, no. And they didn't.
They played pretty well at times, didn't they?
Well, they passed the ball well, but listen,
Are you trying to make a case for a team that just lost 5-0?
Yes, I guess I am.
No, well, that's a...
Well, I thought they were going. I thought the whole plan initially, we were talking about this, was to send a bit of a hybrid team to Aston Villa and a hybrid team to the Club World Cup.
Right.
But clearly, with personnel problems and other things, Liverpool have changed their mind. So they sent all the kids, mostly youngsters, to Villa, and that was always going to be a tall task for these young boys. From Villa's perspective as well, the extra game's not going to help them because they're heading back towards the relegation zone in the Premier League. So it was a bit of a fixture headache for both clubs. For Villa, though, they go into the semi-final, and for Liverpool, they move on with bigger and more important things that they have to achieve this season.
Don, how did you see this? Lots of talk about it degrading the competition. Is that your view?
No, not really. I agree with the lads. I think when you try and analyse what Liverpool are doing, they're going obviously to the Club World Cup. They want to be the best team in the world or the best team in Europe, so they want that tag of being the best team in the world. And unfortunately, it's a sacrifice that's had to be made. It was impossible to try and combine the both. So I think it was really a great story on the young players. And, you know, I think if Harvey Elliott tonight at 16, I mean, dear me, I mean, I was still at school at 16, not playing professional football at 16. It's incredible that he's performing at that level. And he's the one where I think when Jurgen and his backroom staff watch that game back again, they might even be watching it live. He'll be the one where you just think he'll be parachuted, I would imagine, you know, into the first team squad a lot quicker. Not just on the back of that performance on how well he's been playing all season, because the kid's got so much talent. So that was probably the main positive. As Stevie's right, Liverpool's, you know, under 19s, under 21s, were never going to go to Villa Park with a host of first teamers playing for Aston Villa and ever going to compete in the game in terms of the scoreline. Yes, they started the game well, but they were never going to win that.
Well, if your appetite has been whetted for more Carabao Cup action, we have 3 more quarter-finals on Wednesday. Everton against Leicester City and the 2 Manchester teams in action. Lots of attention on Everton, Gab, with potentially Carlo Ancelotti about to arrive as manager. What can you tell us in terms of the latest?
He's certainly leaning towards taking it. At camp, they had meetings with Alisher Usmanov and kind of went through what the project entails. And I think what's appealing to him is that, you know, after years, or I think one of the things is after years of people saying, oh, look, he only manages top clubs, ready-made teams. He comes in. You know, this is a historically great club, which has fallen upon tough times for many years now, and now they're ambitious. There's funding behind it. I think he would have wanted to get reassurances on the investment in terms of financial fair play and the Premier League equivalents, short-term cost controls, because they have spent quite a bit of money. But he's intrigued, and he's certainly leaning in that direction. He's also going to want, I think, assurances in terms of the people around him. You know, we call these guys managers. Well, Carlo Ancelotti is a coach. He doesn't go and sign players and whatever else. So I think the relationship with Marcel Brands, who's the current director of football at the club, is going to be important as well, and figuring these things out. So I think he's going to take a day or two to think about it, but he's certainly leaning in that direction.
Don, as a former Everton man, do you want this to happen?
Do you know what? I'm really torn on this because I'm an Ancelotti fan, and I have been for a long time. And I like what he does with these teams. But Ancelotti's been a man over the years that's always been in and around first, second and third. And he's tried to tweak, you know, little things to try and either make himself a European champion or win in leagues. And he's done it really well. He's quite laid back as a coach. My worry is, I think with Duncan Ferguson being in charge for the couple of games that he had, and Everton's always been a club that's been a club on emotion. You play at Goodison Park and you captain Everton and you walk out to the Gladys Street end. It's an emotional club. It always has been. And Duncan's had a terrific couple of games. And the backstory with Howard Kendall's watch and the sweatbands of the kids from Alderley Hospital all leans towards it being a very emotional club and a personal club. And the reason why I'm torn is because I don't think the board need to rush on this one. Farhad Moshiri and Bill Kenwright will be split, I would imagine, because I'm pretty sure Bill Kenwright would want Duncan Ferguson in the job. The 2 results that he's had, the 3-1 win against Chelsea and the 1-1 draw when they played really well against Man United. But I think Farhad Moshiri said when he first took over the club that he wants Hollywood signings, he wants Hollywood managers, and he wants to take Everton into the Champions League, and he wants them playing European football. This is not going to happen in a couple of windows. This is going to be a long-term project. So the reason why I am torn is because I don't think Ancelotti will be the man to try and get Everton there, unless Duncan Ferguson maybe stays with him as a number 2 or number 3, and they have a plan where Ancelotti gets them as close as he possibly can. I mean, Farhad Moshiri's put £500 million into Everton. Marcus Silva spent 190 million, so the funds are there. The new stadium's going to be there. It's just I'm a little bit torn whether you give Ancelotti the job and expect him to do what he's done over the years, or you just keep it emotional and you just say to Duncan, look, you just carry on and do what you're doing.
It's a big rebuild, isn't it?
Yeah.
But in all fairness, it would be a bit of a statement for Everton Football Club, well, in my opinion, to go out and get someone like Ancelotti. Yeah. Now, the other side of that is there's no point, it's a complete waste of time trying to bring in somebody like Ancelotti if you're not going to back him. Yep. If you do this, you are going to have to back your man, and that means within the constraints of the financial fair play, you're going to have to go out and spend, because the club needs a rebuild anyway, and if you make a statement signing like this as manager, and it would be a statement, then you have to go out and back your man.
Yeah. I mean, given the clubs he's been at previously, this is a different sort of challenge, isn't it?
It is a different challenge, and from Ancelotti's perspective, I think we would all agree here, sitting on this table, say, why don't you just go play some golf, buddy? Take some time off. However, if he wants to jump into this, and I'm assuming that he has had some sort of assurance that, look, we're spending big money, it's happening, it's coming, the players are coming, you're going to have the material to work with that you're used to working with. And if that's the case, that doesn't happen, as Don just mentioned, it doesn't happen over 1 or 2 windows. We're talking about an Everton team that has struggled mightily this season. And part of that is the manager, but part of that is also the player personnel that is available. And so Ancelotti, is he going to work miracles with the players that he has there? No. So this is going to take time. And is Ancelotti being the guy over his long storied career as a manager that has stuck around for a long period of time to see a process through? This is different from all sorts of perspective, from Everton perspective, and it's different from Ancelotti's perspective.
It's about getting the right type of manager. You know, yes, it's a statement if you get Ancelotti because of the CV he's got, but right now they need somewhere in the middle between a Duncan Ferguson and Ancelotti.
Right.
Somebody who can do a little bit of both, because until they completely change around the playing staff, they're going to be struggling.
Well, this is where Everton are very much struggling in 16th place.
Well, fair play to him. Listen, and I know Ali mentioned, we always think that with managers. You know, go and have a break. But, I mean, in some sense, they can't help themselves. They've got that drug and that bug they want to get back in. And fair play if he wants to get his hands and roll his sleeves up and get involved in something like that. But as we know from different clubs that have struggled, sometimes it's easier to get players in.
Yeah.
Than
occasionally, ideally, actually against bigger clubs rather than smaller clubs. And to do that, I think Sadi sent a clear message saying he needs to get the midfield right for that to happen on a regular basis.
Also of note tomorrow, Gab, Gianluigi Buffon could be tying the all-time Serie A appearance record. Did you ever think you'd see this? Paolo Maldini's record?
Well, given that he started very young and he's a goalkeeper, I thought, he would have done it before if he hadn't gone off to Paris Saint-Germain. I mean, you're talking about a freak of nature. What I would point out, and since Xhaka's not there's nobody stick up for the goalkeepers union. For an outfield player to play that many games, I think is an entirely different feat than it is for a goalkeeper. 2 freaks of nature, 2 great players. But I think what Paolo Maldini achieved in playing those games is just that little bit greater because he was actually out there on the pitch running around.
Well, we'll save Xhaka's comments and response for when he gets back. Juventus and Sampdoria.
Count on that.
He'll be weighing in. Juventus Sampdoria, the early game on ESPN Plus on Wednesday. Brescia and Sassuolo to follow a little later on. And don't forget the brand new version of the Serie A Awesome podcast with Gab, Amina and Nikki. Everything broken down on the ESPN Pod Center and the Apple Podcasts. Little refresher for you. This is how they stand in La Liga ahead of the first Clásico of the year. Barcelona and Real Madrid locked together on 35 points. They play on Wednesday at the Nou Camp, a game originally scheduled for October the 26th, called off due to security concerns. This is how the odds makers see it, and it's Barcelona who are prohibitive favourites at 7-5 on Real Madrid. You can get more than 3-1, also 3-1 on the draw. How do we see it, Ali?
Well, what we see from both of these teams is they're both vulnerable. They both have issues. Defensively, there's concern on both parts. Defensively, also out of the midfield, not only the back line, but also out of the midfield, there is a lack of athleticism for Barcelona when Sergio Busquets is playing that is very clear. And so when Barcelona is unable to control the pace of the game with their possession, which they haven't been able to do this year as consistently as they have over the last few seasons, and we have come to expect that from Barcelona, then they go in a back and forth. When they go in a back and forth, they get exposed in the midfield because they simply cannot defend. They don't have in Busquets a guy that can keep up and close the space to other players that are far more athletic than him. So that forces Frankie de Jong into a further back position, which takes him away from being in the attacking half and then forces Lionel Messi into a playmaking area. And so for me, Barcelona must control the pace of the game, must control the possession, and cannot get in a back and forth with Real Madrid. If they do, they're asking for trouble. Force Real Madrid to defend, because when Real Madrid has to defend, they have proven that they have their own difficulties.
In some sense, throwing Rakitic in there as well, and I don't know if he'll play, but he did at the weekend. Throwing Rakitic in there as well, he's very much in the same ball game as Busquets, where he's been a quality player, he's a great thinker about the game, and he's very clever, but he can't get around the field.
Yeah.
It's just Mother Nature. They just cannot get around the field like they once did, and that puts... And in some sense, you think, well, OK, bringing a young guy in sort of helps that out, but it's put so much pressure on the midfield and they've become so easy to play through at times, and it's been a difficult headache for them. And, of course, when Messi wasn't in the team, nobody was able to sort of bail them out. And ultimately, it's going to come down to, I think, being at home, Valverde getting the balance right of his team and Lionel Messi having another game of his life. If that happens, I think Barcelona win the game.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because neither team are at their scintillating best.
No, so because of that, I think definitely the home advantage comes into it. But because of that as well, I think Barcelona are more settled in their 11. You know, Zidane's made a lot of changes, whether it's in the middle of the park or up front. There's no Hazard. Does he play Bale? Does he not? Does he play Rodrigo? At least with Barcelona, you know what the middle three is. Busquets, Rakitic, no question for me, and De Jong. And then the front three picks itself as well. So I just think that they're more settled. And I think that makes a difference when it comes to a big game like this.
I think the presence of Jordi Alba as well, who just came back from injury, played about 60 minutes or so against Real Sociedad over the weekend. That's a natural outlet down the left-hand side, something that they did not have when he was out with injury. Him coming back gives them a different option, something that we have seen so many times with Messi cutting inside from the right-hand side and then looking for that switch over to Jordi Alba. If he's able to then force Carvajal back and he's able to force Real Madrid into defensive positions, then that creates more spaces underneath where Antoine Griezmann can tuck inside, even though he shouldn't be doing that. Lionel Messi is going to create from there, and then Luis Suarez and Messi combined, it has been the difference for Barcelona over the last couple of weeks.
Gab, I believe it's the 243rd competitive meeting between these two. Which way is it going to go?
Well, what I find fascinating here is, as the boys were alluding to, it's really difficult to guess what Zidane is going to do. He's used so many different looks. I love what he did at the weekend against Valencia, where you had Isco and Modric, and then effectively Benzema and Rodrigo as strikers. Obviously, Casemiro will be back. He didn't play at the weekend because he was a yellow card away from suspension. I could see Real Madrid going Casemiro, Valverde with Toni Kroos and hunkering down a little bit. But most of all, what's interesting here is if you're Zidane, you can get an edge. You can out-coach and out-tactic Valverde. Valverde, we know what his lineup's going to be, and it's going to come down to the individual qualities, and then, you know, if Messi or Griezmann do something, then you're out of it. But this is a situation where I think, you know, Zidane can earn his bacon, and I think he will. I'm going to go for the draw here.
John, you see it the same way?
I think this is a type of fixture where it would be very interesting in about 3 or 4 years' time when you see what lineup Valverde went with in the San Siro when a group of youngsters went there, and there was some unbelievable performances from Carlos Perez and 1 or 2 more that they really went there and put a statement performance in. And likewise with Real Madrid, when you think of Rodrigo, Vinicius Jr., Valverde, who I'm a massive fan, and I've been on this show probably the last couple of weeks raving about him. Uruguayan midfield player that looks like Toni Kroos and plays like him, but he's got more athleticism, can go box to box very easy. So this fixture is going to be fascinating in a few years' time when all these young boys get a little bit of maturity. Again, this one's a hard one to call. I think, as Gab said, if Griezmann and Suarez is fit and Messi, they turn it on, they'll be hard to beat. But at the same time, I fancy Real Madrid's midfield. I think Gab's right. I think the three in midfield, I think, almost picks itself. I think Casemiro's 100% a starter. And Toni Kroos and Valverde's the players alongside.
Ahead of El Clásico, is it still the biggest club fixture in the world, wonders Sam? What do we think? Any question at all?
Yes, and again...
Always was, always
yes.
will be, yeah?
And yes.
I wonder why it is. Gab, is it even a question?
I wouldn't say always was, but at different times there might have been other ones. But right now, yes, without any question.
Not if you live in Glasgow.
Well,
yes, unless you live in Glasgow. Sorry.
There you go.
Different perspective.
Horatio.
Yeah.
Air United in Kilmarnock.
Yeah.
Biggie.
Yeah.
Any other places specific that you want to mention?
Derby, I mean, not because of the trials and tribulations of both clubs, but the Milan Derby, I suppose it is still big, but in terms of the teams previously, it was huge as well.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, that's probably the game I would look forward to the most, this one.
Have you been to the Milan Derby? Have you ever graced it with your...
Are you having a laugh? You couldn't pay him to go to again. What makes what seriously?
You could pay him to go.
Hold on.
People do pay him.
He's been.
Give me one reason why you thought he might have been to a Milan
People
Derby.
do pay him to go to games.
Because he has been.
He has a history of going
He's
to games.
covered it.
I wasn't there. I wasn't. Of course, I wasn't just watching the game. I was working. I was
See, people get out of Glasgow, you know, Steve.
I was at the San Siro. Have I mentioned I was at the San Siro? I was at the San Siro for a game
name dropper.
when Mourinho was manager, and I think Milito got the goals.
Yeah.
Would that be 2010?
He got most of those goals in that year.
2010, around then.
The Prince.
It was a great game.
Milito.
I mean, heck of an atmosphere.
Oh yeah.
I must admit, it was as good an atmosphere as I think I've been to. Honestly, it was
Better
really
than
good.
Leicester Watford the other night. You were there too, weren't you?
hey, he's taking shots over here.
Somebody must be telling him in his ear because he doesn't know that.
So was it better than Rangers Celtic
Yes.
when you were getting rid of trying to knock them off the turf?
Well, I don't know because I wasn't in the crowd then. It's hard to tell.
Don, still the biggest fixture?
I think so. I think, like Craig, I was in the San Siro for the Champions League
there we
semi-final.
go.
It was 2002.
Right, you've been
Everybody's been to the San Siro. Everybody's gone to the San Siro.
I paid my money as a fan, and I went to watch the Champions League semi-final in the San Siro. That takes some beating, but as a watch, it was probably the only game, the El Clásico, that every time I was a player, I used to look forward to watching, whether it be a Saturday night or a Sunday night. I tuned in and I never ever missed it.
Yeah.
Right,
Hey, I've been to the San Siro as well.
Have you been?
Champions League final, yes. I was there for
No.
Champions League.
So there's only two people here because I'm presuming Gab obviously has been to the San Siro. So I'm presuming, have you been to the San Siro?
No, I've been to the new camp. I've not been.
I'm not asking you about the
No,
new.
that's the way you haven't been to.
Have you been to San Siro?
No, I haven't been to San Siro.
There's only two of us in.
Right.
It needs. I mean, it's a little bit dilapidated, I must admit.
Right. Gab, moving on. Barmalo wants to know. George Mendes claiming that Ronaldo would have won the Ballon d'Or at Madrid implies that Madrid heavily influenced the voting process, therefore discrediting Ronaldo's previous Ballon d'Or wins. It's more of a statement than a question, but any reaction?
You know what? First of all, I know that a lot of people don't care about this. If you want to give Mendes the benefit of the doubt, you could also argue that he's saying, and this is how I choose to interpret it, that the Ballon d'Or has an enormous proportion of absolute numpties who don't follow the game, who only tune into certain matches, and because Real Madrid have a bigger worldwide following than Juventus, they probably forgot that Ronaldo was even playing when he moved to Juventus, and so didn't vote for him. I think that is how a rational person can maybe rationalize what George Mendes said. Why? Well, I know why Mendes cares about it, because he cares about it because Ronaldo cares about it. Why Ronaldo cares about it is beyond me. why a bunch of people you've never met, what they think of you in a popularity contest, is frankly absolutely silly.
I had no idea that Italians use the word numpties.
I'm just going to say, I'm just glad, absolute numpties at that. Gab went with that.
I learned it from you, Stevie.
And of all the years to complain,
You're never too old to learn.
Of all the years to complain, if you're George Mendes, this is not the one, because it's not. The question wasn't whether it was Messi or Ronaldo to win it; it was Messi and Van Dijk to win.
Yeah, exactly. Stevie, Jeremy, was the Villa celebration a bit excessive tonight in the Carabao Cup, considering the opposition? Hashtag leg guitar.
No.
The old.
No, listen. When was the last time Villa got anywhere near a major tournament final? So
2012.
Well, there you go. So they've got themselves into the
Wasn't that long ago,
semi-finals, and
right.
for some of these players, they may never ever get even close to going and playing a final. So I have no problem with them celebrating.
Right. Don, this one for you. Would Timo Werner be a good fit at Chelsea?
Ooh, I thought you were going to say Liverpool because it'd be a good fit there. I think Timo Werner anywhere in the Premier League would be a good fit. I've always liked him. I think he's one of the quickest out there. He knows where the back of the net is. He's only young as well. Plays with high energy. So I think he'd be sensational for the Premier League.
Could have been any player there.
Yeah.
Could have been any player. Would he have been a good fit at I thought he'd been a good fit at Liverpool.
18 goals in the Bundesliga.
Oh, I'd
like to see him at Chelsea.
Would I like to see him at Chelsea? I don't particularly care.
But what do you?
You're not bothered,
Not bothered. Timo Werner would be. I don't think he struggled. I don't think he struggled. Well,
Yeah.
I have no preference. Should I put it that way? I have no preference. I'm not going to mention Liverpool here again. I'll leave that to others.
How would he do it at San Siro?
Yes, that's a good question. They'll use him.
Would you be watching when he did it?
Well, I think he'd do particularly well for Inter. AC Milan would be a different story. Now, he's clearly a good player who eventually is going to have to make, I would think, a big move. And yeah.
Now, neither of these players play at the San Siro. Ali, Kevin De Bruyne or Eden Hazard? Simple choice.
At their best.
At their best. Which one?
Their very best.
Yeah. Very, very, very top of their
Eden Hazard.
abilities. Eden Hazard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I say, squad.
That was I think, a sigh of dissension from Don.
Well, that's all right. That's all right.
He'd fit at Liverpool.
Wow.
Go on, Don.
It's got to be De Bruyne, isn't it? I mean, I got asked on social media the other day.
Oh, here we go.
Who does Kevin De Bruyne remind you of? And I was trying to think, and the only two I could come up with, if you amalgamated the two of them, would be Steven Gerrard and David Beckham.
I thought you were going to say Craig Burley.
Oh, and Craig Burley, yeah, because he's better than David Beckham according to Craig Brown.
Only at crossing the ball.
Is that another one of Browning?
Yes. No, nobody delivers the ball better
than Craig Burley.
Who's going to be
To be fair, I could whip it in, but I wasn't there. I did see the lads laughing out the corner of my eye. It was duly noted. I don't know. That's
Hazard, De Bruyne. We need a tiebreaker here. We got.
I like De Bruyne.
Yeah.
I don't know, but then Hazard's carried Chelsea for a few years, didn't he? So it's a tough one.
Aye.
All right, so we'll just.
Are you kidding, Stevie?
That's a tough one. I tell you, that is a toughie.
Well, I tell you what, you on
Get
tomorrow?
off the fence, man.
No,
Get off the fence.
I'll tell you on Thursday. I'm off tomorrow. I'll think about it tomorrow.
How much are you going to think about it?
A lot.
Well, think about this one from Hisham. Do Spurs still need Christian Eriksen?
It depends what version we're talking about. The one they've
current one,
got
I
now,
guess.
no, they can get rid of him as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Yep.
But if Mourinho is able to get the former version of Eriksen back, do they still need
You
him?
mean to tell me that Mourinho couldn't go to Eriksen and say, "Are you Christian Eriksen's brother?" Is that not going to work for him?
Maybe he's still waiting on that.
Well, I think he's happy at the moment with Dele Alli in the 10 and Son and Mora.
Right.
With Eriksen coming off the bench as he did against Wolves. So I think if he could move him on, he probably will move him on. So, yeah.
Gab, want to weigh in on this?
If you get him to re-sign, on your terms, then he'll be an asset. But the reality is that in 2 weeks, you can go and sign you can start negotiating with clubs abroad. So So no, I mean, I think as far as Eriksson is concerned, I think that ship has sailed.
Meanwhile, reasonable person.
How many questions? I thought you said you'd cut these down.
No, I said I had a long list today. Reasonable person for you, Stevie. Does the living legend, that is Steve Nicol, think that Leeds United, Leeds, will get promotion this year? They've been knocking, knocking on the door for so long.
I thought they were absolute. At one point last year, I thought they were absolute certainties,
yeah?
And then they blew it big time.
Depends what time. It depends what date of the season Bielsa goes on one of his spying missions.
Yes.
After that, everything. They just ran out of gas last year.
Yeah.
I'm going to say this year, I think them and West Brom are quite a stretch ahead.
Got themselves separated.
So I'm going to say yes this year. I think they're going to get up. And a big club as well. I mean, big club.
They ran into Frank Lampard's Derby County last year, didn't they, in the playoffs? Don't know why I added that, but...
I don't know either.
We were wondering that as well.
Don't worry, you're not the only one thinking that.
I'm not alone in that department. Zach Hunter, following last week's most French debate, who's the most Scottish out of Craig and Stevie? I don't know how we would assess.
How do you judge it?
How do we judge that?
Well, I do think that...
We could have a drinking competition, but then that could take a while.
We'd be the last two standing, nobody would know.
From an outsider's perspective,
yes,
I would suggest that Craig may be a little bit more cosmopolitan than Stevie Nicol. Perhaps a man of the world, if you will.
Okay.
But it's a bit more suave.
Does that make him more Scottish or less Scottish?
Well, not... I think Stevie's very Scottish.
I would say,
Because he lived in London.
I would say Stevie's more he is more likely to revert into the Scottish twang than me.
Yeah.
Heavier. Where you'd be going, eh?
He
also hates England.
To be fair.
He also hates England.
What age were you when you left home?
16.
16. So you're still a Wayne.
That's what I'm saying. You're most Scottish.
So, yeah, I'll go with that.
And yeah, you should be proud of that.
Well, to be fair, he's got more of a Scottish look.
Yeah.
Would you not say that? You know, he's your generic Scotsman.
I can see
red hair, red face.
Well,
pale skin.
Pale skin.
Factor 150, everything, the full lot when he's on holiday, umbrella, the lot, full booner. No sun. That's proper Scotsman, that.
Don, I'm thinking you may be well qualified to weigh in on this.
What was that guy's name?
Well, it's got to be
Fabian,
Stevie, isn't it? I mean, if you're talking about the guys who have travelled around the world, I mean, obviously Craig's been to the San Siro and Stevie hasn't. So straight away, it has to be Stevie Nicol.
So that makes Stevie more Scottish.
What's it, this guy? Who's the guy with the big blonde flowing locks? Fabian or Fabian or
Fabio?
Fabio, here is Fabio.
Who's
Fabio? No, just hey, you're
Fabio.
You're
He's Italian.
Well, he doesn't sound Scottish to me.
No, he's not. He's definitely not.
Where are we going with this? What's it?
All you need to know is you're the absolute double.
Well, I'm just saying.
Fabio.
If you
That's
were,
all you need to know.
if you were, what's it?
Gab knows Fabio.
If you were
I think he knows him
recreating a
personally.
Scotsman, he's like, you know, he's not far off it. You know, it's like he's pretty much it in a nutshell. Archetypical Scottish person. So he wins.
All right.
He wins.
Okay. Debate 1 done and dusted. We will be back with you tomorrow. Lots